All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to dive deep into the science of motivation and figure out how you can trick your brain into not just doing hard things, but actually, liking them.
So let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed you can play a video game for like hours on end, totally zoned in, but then trying to study for just 30 minutes feels like an absolute marathon? It's weird, right? You know studying is better for you in the long run. So what is going on here?
Well, to get to the bottom of that, we have to look inside our own heads at our brain's powerful desire engine. And the fuel for this whole system? It's a tiny but super influential chemical.
Now, you've probably heard of dopamine. Most people call it the pleasure molecule, right? Well, it turns out that's a common mistake. It's not really about pleasure at all. It's about desire. Think of dopamine as the motivation molecule. It's the stuff that creates that urge, that craving, that push to get up and actually do something. Honestly, without it, we do nothing.
And just how powerful is this desire? Oh, it's intense. Let me tell you about this kind of wild experiment neuroscientists did. They took some rats and implanted electrodes right into their brains. Now, whenever a rat pulled a little lever, zap, its reward system got a direct jolt of stimulation, basically a pure shot of dopamine.
And the results were just insane. The rats developed this craving that was so powerful, they just kept hitting that lever, over and over and over again. They didn't eat, they didn't sleep, they completely ignored everything else, just pushing that lever until they literally collapsed from exhaustion. That is the raw power of dopamine.
Okay, but what happens when you take it away? So in the next part of the experiment, the scientists did the opposite. They blocked the dopamine, and the result was just as dramatic. The rats became so listless, so lethargic. They wouldn't even get up to drink water. They lost all motivation, all desire. In short, they lost their will to live.
Okay, so you might be thinking, that's a lab rat. What does that have to do with me? Well, that's the scary part. That exact same system is running inside your brain right now. In our modern world, it's basically a dopamine overload machine.
Just take a look at this. On one side, you've got your high dopamine activities, video games, scrolling social media, junk food. You know the drill. These things give you a massive, unpredictable rush of dopamine. That's why they feel so addictive. On the other side, you've got the good stuff, studying, exercising, reading. These things are amazing for you, but the dopamine release is much smaller and more predictable.
So why can't we just, enjoy both? The problem is something called homeostasis. It's a fancy word for a simple idea. Your body loves balance. Think about it. When you're cold, you shiver to get warm. When you're hot, you sweat to cool down. Well, the same thing happens with brain chemistry. If you keep giving it huge hits of something, it starts to build a tolerance. You need more and more to get the same feeling. And yep, that goes for dopamine too.
And this is where it all comes together. When you're constantly bombarding your brain with those high dopamine activities, your brain's new normal gets jacked up. It gets used to that high level of stimulation. So what happens? Well, those normal, productive, low dopamine tasks start to feel just painfully boring. They simply can't compete for your brain's attention anymore.
So, are we just stuck in this cycle forever? Nope. There is a way out. It's something called a dopamine detox, and you can think of it like hitting a hard reset button on your brain's entire reward system.
Okay, the full-on version is pretty intense, I'm not going to lie, but it's super effective. Here's how it works. You set aside one entire day, and on that day, no phone, no computer, no music, no junk food, no masturbation. You basically strip away every single source of easy external pleasure. The whole point is to just be bored. But why on earth would you do that? Well, this analogy explains it perfectly. Imagine you're used to eating gourmet food every single day. A bowl of plain rice sounds awful, right? But what if you were stranded on a deserted island and starving? Suddenly, that same bowl of rice would be the most delicious thing you've ever tasted. That's exactly what the detox does. When you're truly bored, those boring, productive tasks, they start looking pretty darn interesting.
Okay, I get it. A full day of pure boredom might sound like way too much, so here's a less extreme option that you can actually stick with. Just pick one day a week, maybe a Sunday, and for that day, you cut out your single biggest high dopamine habit, whether that's scrolling Instagram or playing video games. That one day is enough to give your dopamine receptors a much-needed break and start resetting your brain.
A detox is a fantastic reset, for sure. But for real, long-term change, you need a strategy for everyday life. It's not just about hitting reset, it's about learning how to actually win the dopamine game.
And the number one strategy is this. You turn your high dopamine fun into a reward that you have to earn. The key, and this is absolutely crucial, is that you have to do the hard, boring work first. If you let yourself have the fun first, well, you know what happens. Your motivation to do the hard stuff just vanishes into thin air.
So here's a super practical way to do this. Set a simple ratio. For example, for every 1 hour of studying, you earn 15 minutes of video games. You can play with those numbers, find what works for you. But remember the golden rule. Work first, reward after. Oh, and one last thing. It probably goes without saying, but don't use a seriously damaging addiction as your reward. That kind of defeats the purpose.
Look, at the end of the day, we are all wired to chase dopamine. It's what drives us. It's what makes us human. The real question is, where are you going to get it from? Are you going to get it from cheap, easy distractions that leave you feeling empty? Or are you going to learn how to get it from the deep satisfaction of actually working on your goals, of building a better life? The choice really is yours.